Hello. Today I thought I'd tell you how I got started with sewing and costuming in general. My mother was a wonderful sewist. She made clothing for my brothers and myself growing up. She made my prom dress. She even made my wedding dress. And I really wasn't interested in sewing at all until I was a junior in high school. And my then boyfriend and I were going to go to a sock hop. This was in 1974. And my mother had gone back to school, so she was taking nursing classes and couldn't help me make this skirt. So I was determined that I was going to make a skirt for the sock hop. My husband now remembers that I called him up crying, and I was so frustrated because I had ripped that skirt apart so many times. I got very familiar with a seam ripper, but it did come together. And I'm happy to say, not only was I able to wear it to that sock hop, but that we won first place in the dance contest. Now, eventually, a few years later, my husband and I, we were married, and we had a couple of children. And my mother gifted me her old Kenmore sewing machine, which was a real workhorse. And I used it occasionally to sew simple curtains and Halloween costumes every year, but mostly it just sat around gathering dust. Now that all changed when my husband decided to get into living history. He had always been a big history buff, and he started doing a reenacting with an 1830s group, the ones that do things out at the Alamo. And my children and I wanted to spend some time with him, and to purchase historical costuming for the family would have been very expensive. So I taught myself basically how to sew historical costuming. Fortunately, the first real sewing machine wasn't invented until 1845 by Elias Howe, and they didn't become a modern-day version sewing machine for the public until about 1851. So in the 1830s, people were sewing things by hand, and most of the patterns were simple rectangles and squares. And so I was able to learn to sew enough to outfit my family. These are some of the clothing that I recreated. I made everything that you see in the picture. And from there, it was a matter of simply practice, practice, practice. And fortunately, I was able to meet some people along the way to help me out. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in part 2. Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the beginnings of my costuming journey. I hope that each of you is fortunate enough to meet someone along the path that helps you in your endeavors, that helps you with your hobbies, that encourages you and pushes you to do better work. I was very fortunate in that at one of my early 1830s Alamo events, I met someone, Gray Grabowski, and she became a true sister of the soul. We helped each other learn historical techniques for sewing, including things like cartridge pleating and quilting and embroidery. We also learned pioneer skills like spinning, card weaving, butter churning, candle making, and campfire cooking. We even compiled what we learned into a book called The Woman's Guide to 1830s Fashion, Finery, and Practical Pursuits back in 1989. Since then, Ruth Ann has continued to be a very close friend. She comes and visits me every year. We try to do costuming events together even now. She lives in Virginia and volunteers at the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown in colonial garb with her husband and her granddaughters. And she continues to encourage me as I go along this journey. Now, when I first started out, again, I was making very simple things, but I kept practicing and I got better and better. This is a gown that I made that was taken directly off of a painting, a reproduction painting. In 1830s, there were no photographs yet, so costuming had to come from still lifes, and I think I did a pretty good job of recreating this. I also learned to recognize fabrics that could work, that were reproduction fabrics. When I brought home the fabric for this particular gown, my husband said it was the ugliest fabric he had ever seen in his life. I got it from Wynn store, which is an old 5 and dime store, and I liked it because it had a lot of seconds in fabric, And because it had mistakes in the fabric, it looked like it could have been hand blocked printed. And I was able to take that ugly fabric and turn it into this ball gown. Now you'll notice we are dancing, so the skirt is pulled out. This is in a time before hoop skirts, so you just wear lots of petticoats under it. Here's a better shot of it with the big 1830s sleeves that were actually, they have puffs inside of them that you wore. Again, this was all done through practice, little bit by little bit, getting better and better. And I think that's what happens when you're doing cosplay too, is that you need to just stretch yourself to get better and better. Have a great day.